All right, so my name is Andrew Walter. I've been teaching for 22 years. I teach at Stagg High School in Stockton Unified. And I won the award in 2008. And I guess the best thing I could probably tell you about making things relevant to students is to try and stay current with what's happening in the world. That's one of the things I do on a regular basis is I watch the news every morning. I listen to the news on the way to school. I try and keep up on the history, future channels that talk about technology that's relevant and coming out. And that way when I go to school, it's not about the kids, waiting for the kids to say, well, where am I going to ever use this? It's me jumping the gun and telling them where they're going to use it before they get a chance to ask. So a lot of times in my class, I start off with an example of how it's going to apply to the real world, to sort of hook them into why it would be interesting to even learn the math that goes with it. And then we talk about the math so that they're already engaged in the conversation. The other thing that I've done is I've read a book called Physics of the Future, which talks about technology that's coming out in the next 50 to 100 years, things that are possibly already existent, but they don't know how to kind of roll it out into the general population yet. And we talk about how the math that we're learning now is going to affect it, because one of the key things I try to get the kids to understand is learning math for today is pointless. They've got to learn math for 5 to 10 years from now if they want to be relevant when they graduate. And so one of the things I kind of get across to them is if they learn the content well enough that they can apply it to something that's not yet quite even created or invented, then that's going to help them sort of be a marketable source when they get out of school. And for a lot of my students, even the most common technology that we talk about, they haven't seen, they don't know, because we're not in an area where technology is a common thing. So we talk about TV screens that can be rolled up and how that's being affected by some of the things we're doing on a nanotechnology. So we bring in the science and the math combination, because I think it's important for them to not just see math as a standalone, contextually, like you learn it and it's isolated facts. It's got to be, where does this actually apply to not just real world, but how are you going to use it in your science class? How do you use it on a daily basis? And so a lot of it is getting the students to see that it's relevant to where they are now, but where they may not even know they're headed. That's, I think, the key, is to keep them knowing that in 5 to 10 years, the jobs that they think they're going to have may not even be there. It may be something totally different, and they have to learn how to be creative enough to morph that education into something where they can use that skill in any setting. So that's one of the things I try and do with the relevancy is I try to get them to be more critical, creative thinkers rather than analytic computations. You know, everything that we could do by hand, a computer could do now almost as fast, if not faster. I have apps on my phone where I could click it and it'll solve the problem for me, and it'll show me all the work. But it doesn't explain to me what any of that means and how it applies to anything. So if I tell them x equals 6, my question is always, 6 what? What does that even mean? And so that's one of the things I did this year that flipped the script a little bit on them this year was I gave them numbers, solutions to problems, and I had them write the word problems that would go with it to see if you could figure out, like, okay, so I have x equals 7.5. Give me a story that goes with it. Tell me a setting that this would actually apply to, anything that would come up with 7.5 as an answer. And the kids came up with some pretty creative solutions. And I had them share them. I had them actually jigsawed out, so this group switched with other members, and they shared the stories to see, does your story actually make sense, and does that solution actually solve the problem that you presented? And so that's kind of how we keep it relevant.